The Kansas City Chiefs are looking to get one of the all-important remaining three. Three wins by the Kansas City Chiefs and or losses by the Bills and the Steelers will cement the number one seed for the Kansas City Chiefs, who will desperately need a bye week in the playoffs, and hopefully they can get all three of those numbers wrapped up before the final week of the regular season and end up having essentially 2 bye weeks heading into the playoffs to rest, get things right, and practice on some things they have not put on tape for everyone else to see. I have a preview and a prediction for the Chiefs and the Browns game, and I'm going to lead this off with the big ideas. The number one is just that. This is the non-must-win, must-win. The Kansas City Chiefs do need that rest heading into the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs are getting to their healthiest perhaps all season, as they have just welcomed back Isaiah Pacheco and Charles Omenihu, but they are still a team that has not had an off week since week 6, and they have played in a lot of close contests, meaning that their starters were on the field the entire game. They need this win, even if it doesn't necessarily look that way mathematically. The number two thing here is homecoming. Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt are from the Cleveland area. I don't know why this is such a big deal, but it always seems to come up when the Chiefs play the Browns. And Travis Kelce normally has a pretty good day versus the Browns. So they'll be fired up for sure for this game in a week that would otherwise have little intrinsic motivation. So hopefully those two fellas can lead this charge towards a victory on Sunday. The number three thing is this. Every time you have something that seems absolutely obvious in the NFL, the exact opposite happens, and we will get into why this will be the NFL special, possibly, to happen in this game. But Mahomes will go off for 400 yards. Nick Chubb will go off for 250 in a 45-42 shootout, as neither offense is particularly potent. Both teams are defense-driven, and the Chiefs are really good against the run, and the Browns are okay against the pass. So we will see how that all wraps up. Number four thing is this. It might be tempting to not take the Cleveland Browns particularly seriously. They are 2-6 in their last 8. But those 2 wins are against the Ravens and the Steelers. So they are giant killers. They are a team that is going to rise to the occasion, perhaps, even if they fall to the occasion most of the time. So this is a game that the Kansas City Chiefs do need to take seriously. Well, what happens when the Chiefs run the football? The Chiefs are 21st in the NFL with 110.6 yards per game on the ground, and the Browns are 22nd in the NFL, surrendering 127.9 yards per game. So the Chiefs should be able to run against this team. I would hope, that they limit Isaiah Pacheco's exposure in this game because, like I said, this is not a must-win. And I think that Kareem Hunt can get the job done. So can Carson Steele. So can Samaje Perine. So hopefully, if I had my way, especially that there might be some nasty conditions in Cleveland, that this would be sort of a Kareem Hunt homecoming type of ordeal where he gets to just pound the rock. And when we're looking at that, I would double team defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson, who's 325 pounds, and then run at defensive tackle Shelby Harris, who's only 288, and Isaiah McGuire, the rookie out of Mizzou. You take Kareem Hunt and Carson Steele up the gut of this defense, and you just collect first downs. And you run the time off the clock, and you grind out another win. That might not sound particularly pleasing to watch, but hey, wouldn't you rather see a win? And wouldn't you rather see a win with limited exposure to our starters? Well, what about when the Kansas City Chiefs pass? The Chiefs are 13th in the NFL with 227.6 yards per game passing. The Browns are 13th in the NFL, allowing 215.3 yards per game. A lot of that, however, is on the back of Myles Garrett scaring the PP out of opposing QBs. Can the Chiefs slow Myles Garrett, who is 6'4", 272, has 11 sacks on the season and 3 forced fumbles? I missed an end parentheses there. Please forgive me. Now, adding to that final point in what happens when the Chiefs run, that you need to limit your exposure, this is part of it. The Chiefs have 5 wide receivers on IR, 4 or 5 depending on the place you're looking. Hollywood, Mecole, Rashi, and Sky, and by some reports, Jaron Hyatt is on the IR for the Kansas City Chiefs, though he does not appear on the official roster from the team itself. But there have been other things that have been kind of anomalous there as well. They also have 2 tight ends on IR, Jody Fortson and Jared Wiley. And the weather is shaping up to be ugly, so I do not expect anything fancy in the passing game. I do not expect any big risk plays, and I don't expect any 7-step drops because, Myles Garrett. I would expect Juju and Nuke with some short stuff and Xavier Worthy on drags across the middle away from Myles Garrett so that Mahomes has the option to scramble and have a dump off. Now, if you are looking for a possible disprove to this, the chess moves that are the ever-evolving game of football, Cleveland could consistently blitz from the non-Myles Garrett side in order to keep Patrick Mahomes trapped in the pocket. If that ends up being the case, just run the football. The secondary, now this is a very important point and very serious stuff. The secondary for the Cleveland Browns has 3 juniors and 2 the seconds. XYZ Jr., ABC the second. 5 of the players in their secondary are one of those 2 titles. This is obviously a group that cannot stand on their own. It would be a good game to try to develop the quick rhythm passing game that the Kansas City Chiefs are likely to turn to, at least in part, in the postseason. We see it basically every year. The Chiefs get in the postseason and they try to find more rhythm than they had during the year. We have not seen that develop so far this season. We have an excerpt that I stole from Arrowhead Pride, that Arrowhead Pride stole from Dogs by Nature just this morning. An article that had this to say. That being said, what that was, I do not know. I did not check. I just needed the rest of this quote. Cleveland linebackers have been surprisingly good in coverage this season, especially last weekend when they obtained a 71.0 PFF coverage grade against the Steelers. Jordan Hicks, Muhammad Diabate, and Devin Bush need to have another effective performance against the Chiefs if they want to slow down the Mahomes to Kelce connection in Week 15. Jim Schwartz might choose to play more man coverage in the secondary in order to make it harder for Kansas City's pass catchers this weekend. Playing man-to-man coverage forces receivers and tight ends to physically beat the defender and find ways to get themselves open, whereas zone coverage puts more pressure on the quarterback to find the open man in pockets. It's easy to see why Schwartz would want to man up Diabate on who's an imposing, lengthy defender, 6'4", 230 pounds, on Kelce to limit his ability to be Patrick Mahomes' safety valve on Sunday. Taking away the holes for Kelce to sit in the second level could be the most effective way to defend him for Cleveland. It's safe to say that if the Browns want to give themselves a better chance to beat the Chiefs, they need to find a way to effectively limit Travis Kelce's production. Here is... If you want to talk a little bit more about the chess, the art of war, the 4D chess, the sort of game theory of this, what I would do if I were the Chiefs, knowing this is likely the case, the Browns are going to come out and try to limit Travis Kelce, is that I would make sure to make a point of going to Travis Kelce early. Get them to try to dedicate more of their resources towards limiting Kelce, and then you open up some other stuff. Well, what about when the Browns run the football? Well, we have these numbers. Cleveland is 30th in the NFL with 88.5 yards per game, and Kansas City is third in the NFL, surrendering just 88.3 yards per game. The Chiefs should be able to stop the run and force the pass. If conditions are bad, and Jameis Winston is the Jameis Winston we all know and love, this could get ugly early. It could be finally a comfortable win for the Kansas City Chiefs, even if the Browns are giant killers in the NFL. I would expect defensive line rotation to keep the pass rush fresh. It would be a good game to see if Tui Pelotu can get some reps under his belt before the postseason. Mike Pennell and Derek Nottie are good against the run. They are not quite as effective versus the pass. So if the Browns are forced into passing situations, keeping a defensive line rotation might be to the disadvantage of the Kansas City Chiefs. You also have to pull into question whether or not you want to expose Chris Jones to the bad conditions as much as you would maybe need to generate that pass rush. It just depends. We will get into that down here a little bit, or we will get into the Browns offensive line a little bit in a second. What about when the Browns pass the football? Cleveland is 15th in the NFL with 224.5 yards per game, and Kansas City is 21st in the NFL, surrendering 221.8 yards per game. This game, when the Browns pass the ball, is likely to be chaos. We all know the troubles that the Kansas City Chiefs have had with their second corner and their nickel corner situations. We also all know that Jameis Winston is an absolute wild card on the football field. We also are factoring in that there could be negative weather conditions. We factor in the fact that the Browns are unlikely to be able to run the ball, so they're going to be forced into passing situations. Things could get very, very wild very, very early in this game. Jameis does, however, have the offense moving. He's going to throw for a lot of yards, and he's going to throw for a lot of interceptions. Hopefully, that is going to be the case if the Chiefs can force those turnovers and capitalize on the ensuing offensive possessions, even if it's just with a field goal. It will force more passing in potentially bad conditions with a potentially erratic passer towards an erratic secondary. And guys, things could look real wacky, real quick. It just depends on what ends up happening. The Browns' offensive guards are both questionable for this game. Jermaine Ifedi has a 40.7 PFF pass blocking grade and a 41 overall grade. His complementary tackle, Jack Conklin, has a 66 grade. I would expect a lot of blitzes to make Jameis move, and behind those blitzes, I would expect disguised coverages to force mistakes. Jameis Winston is not afraid to throw the ball. Make him do that. My prediction, Chiefs win 35.5 points to 35 points for the Cleveland Browns. Again, the importance of this game is easy to understate. The Chiefs don't have to win. They have a 2-game lead right now. The Chiefs don't have to win. They have won 12 games to this date. The Chiefs don't have to win. The Browns are not one of the players for a postseason spot. The AFC postseason side of the bracket is basically filled up. The only question is whether or not the Broncos will make it into the playoffs or the Colts. If you look at the percentages, that's what it comes down to. The Broncos and the Colts do play this coming Sunday, and that will be for basically that playoff spot. Although, even if they lose, the Broncos are odds-on favorites to get to the postseason. So the Browns, completely out of that conversation, don't pose a real risk to the seeding should the Kansas City Chiefs the Chiefs will have their own destiny in their hands, regardless of what happens in the Browns game. But it could make things a whole lot easier. That is what I have for this review. Yesterday, I had a video up on the offensive line that I dropped late, the future of the offensive line. I also had a video on Steven Nelson. Those things are on the channel now. I will be back later with a video on Siaki Ika. The Chiefs just signed the defensive tackle from the Browns, by the by. So be sure to hit the subscribe button to stick around for those videos. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.